So, case in point is this conversation I tried to have in this Facebook group that's predominantly liberal women, and it was a couple of weeks ago after the ex Marine choked out the Michael Jackson impersonator on the subway. And the conversation started with this post here, which was a screenshot of the guy, Sean King, who is like the white guy that is a spokesman for Black Lives Matter or something. I think they call him Talcum X. He made a post where he said, Daniel Penny, who is the ex-Marine, said, Daniel Penny, after choking a tiny black man to death, is being made into a conservative white superhero. They love a white man that inflicts pain like this. It is borderline biblical blasphemy to call this man a good Samaritan. That biblical story is about a man who is nearly beaten to death and left to die by religious people, only to eventually be cared for and taken in by kind and gentle people. Let me be clear. 0 good Samaritans were present when Jordan Neely, that's the Michael Jackson impersonator, 0 good Samaritans were present when Jordan Neely was choked to death. 0. Now I have to say it because it keeps getting lost here. Jordan Neely touched nobody. The only person who made this physical was the white man who killed him. I had a lot of thoughts in response to this particular post. And I'm going to show you a couple of the conversation threads that spawned from this topic here. The first is a lady who said that being homeless with mental health problems should not be a death sentence. He touched nobody. This is an indication of the bigger problem in this country and how we view and deal with homeless and mentally ill people. And the original poster was like, preach, yes, go queen. And I just found that very annoying because nobody's criminalizing being homeless or making your mental health issues a death sentence. In this particular case, as I tried to explain here in the comment, this guy, he got on the subway and was threatening people because he was hungry and he wasn't afraid of going to jail. Because there actually are people out there that will commit crimes intentionally because prison is the better alternative to living on the street. So being homeless isn't a death sentence, but if you walk into a subway car of people and you threaten them, I don't think it's shocking that people would take that threat seriously and react instead of standing around and waiting until that person makes good on their threats. I don't believe that she ever came back to respond or say anything to that. So the next person commented on there says, why is people letting him get away with this? Why are they supporting him? And the person who originally posted was like, because he's an ex-Marine is my guess. And also, racism. So her answer is that people are supporting him because, as Sean King said in his original post, that white people just love to see other white people kill black people in public. That's her highbrow explanation for why anybody could potentially disagree with her that this man deserves 15 years in prison for doing what he did. Racism. So I didn't get a chance to take a screenshot of what I said in response to her question where she asked, why is people letting him get away with this? Why are they supporting him? I was happy to explain it to her, since if she's never actually talked to anybody that thinks differently than her, you might disagree with my logic, but you can at least conclude that it's not racism that is the motivation behind the disagreement. I didn't get to take the screenshot of it, because actually when I responded, instead of participating in a discussion with me or explaining how she disagrees or anything like that, she just blocked me. So I didn't know the conversation was going to be interesting enough to take a screenshot of it until that happened. So I don't remember exactly what I said, but gets talked about. My general points get talked about here in some responses to a few other people that chimed in. After I realized I got blocked, I left a comment where I said, well, I guess Denise doesn't really want an answer to her question since she blocked me as soon as I gave her one. And then the original poster said, because your support is actually gross. That is all. So, well, what's gross about it? Because I think it's gross to accuse people of being racist based on nothing more than your imagination. And then she responded and said, la 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 la. Part of the reason I included the screenshot is so you don't have to take my word for it. She actually typed that out. La 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 la. And now she wants to step away from the racist argument for a minute. Because you don't just choke someone out and kill them. Or do you not understand that aspect? Manslaughter, flanslaughter. He killed somebody. But that probably means 0 to you. It's not about semantics either. So I just responded and said, well, it's hard to separate the racist argument because if you remove those evil motives that you assign to this man based on nothing, then this is clearly an instance of a Good Samaritan law. Your screenshot might say that it wasn't, but even your screenshot has to falsely attribute race as the motive in order to make that case. Because a man was in public, he was threatening people and saying that he was hungry and thirsty, so he didn't care if he went to jail for a really long time, and he was willing to do something that would put him away for a really long time. So reasonable people on that subway took that threat seriously, and they intervened. Now, your screenshot says that the Good Samaritan law doesn't apply because Neely didn't touch anyone. But that's not a requirement of the Good Samaritan law. Good Samaritans can intervene if there is a reasonable threat of harm or danger. And considering 3 people all independently thought this man needed restrained, as well as the subway car full of witnesses, it's hard to say that this was an unreasonable or reckless act by the men who intervened. So, just a pause from the comment that I left here for a second, because I do want to bring that up. There were actually 3 people that helped restrain this guy. The only one to my knowledge, and I'm not super well versed on this topic, so maybe there's been updates that I just haven't seen, but the last I heard about this, the only one of the 3 that got charged was the ex-Marine, the white guy. Because at least one of the other 2 people that helped restrain him was a black guy. So it makes it even harder for me to believe that this was a racially motivated attack and not a reasonable response to what people appeared or thought was a threatening situation. Because if this guy was just choking this man out because he was black and homeless and had mental health problems, then 2 strangers just decided to be like, I'm gonna jump in and help him do that. And one of them's a black guy that wants to help in this racially motivated killing. Like, to my knowledge, these people don't all know each other. They're 3 random guys that all felt that this was necessary. And in the videos, you don't hear anybody on the subway being like, get off him, what are you doing? He was minding his own business. It's my understanding that people were very thankful of their intervention, and nobody seems to be objecting to it. But I went on and said, also the fact that this resulted in someone's death, while tragic, does not automatically make it a violation of the Good Samaritan law, because that's explicitly what the law is meant to do. Allow people to intervene when there is a reasonable threat without fear of prosecution for unintended injuries, mistakes, and wrongful death. Here is what the Good Samaritan law says. And another disingenuous thing that Shaun King did in that Facebook post was try to make it like Christians out to be hypocrites or act like the Good Samaritan law is related to this biblical story. I'm not super well versed on the Bible to that extent, so I don't maybe maybe his summary of what the Good Samaritan story in the Bible was, maybe his summary is accurate. I don't know enough to challenge him on it, but I do know that when people are talking about the Good Samaritan law in the context of the Subway Hero story, they're not talking about the biblical story. There are actually Good Samaritan laws and legal exceptions and carves out for people to intervene in situations where there's perceived harm or danger. So that's what people are talking about. It's not a biblical reference in this particular case. Another element to this that I thought was interesting was that it's the same people that typically believe that we overcrowd our prisons and people shouldn't be going to prison for nonviolent crimes, even if those crimes were intentional. Same people that cheer for prison reform and say that we lock up too many people. America is too large of a penal colony. The private, for-profit prison system is corrupt. And some of those same people that are cheering for this man to get a 15-year prison sentence for trying to restrain a person who was threatening people. Because I imagine that if any of you were on that subway and being threatened, you would have been appreciative of the 3 people that helped neutralize the threat, instead of saying, no, wait until he actually attacks me before you help me. And the original poster says, it's not that he shouldn't have been restrained, it's the fact he killed someone with his excessive force. How does this not make sense to you? And then I believe the person that blocked me must have left a comment there that I can't see, because then she responded and said, yes, it's giving me that anyone would defend. And I said, I know, it's shocking that people would defend something that an entire subway car full of people felt was necessary to do at the time. She says, why are you defending a murderer? There is absolutely zero excuse. Well, he's not a murderer. He was charged with manslaughter. And if you want to accuse him of a racially motivated murder, I'm just asking, what are you basing that off of? So if wanting evidence for an accusation is now defending a murderer, then guilty is charged, I guess. She says, I'm done here because this is a circular convo. Enjoy your day because you're alive. I said, well, it's not a circular convo because I asked you on what basis are you accusing this man of being a racist murderer, and now you're refusing to answer and you're just fleeing the conversation. So I don't know if you're familiar with what a circle is, but this ain't it. She said, bye, Kelsey. So, again, they never have anything to say to actually back up your opinion. They can't make a legal argument for why the Good Samaritan law doesn't apply in this particular case. They can't give you a specific reason other than their tribal partisan politics for why they think that this man is a racist. They don't have any logical way to tell the story of why only this, or to justify why only one of the 3 guys that restrained him is the racist murderer, and why the other 2 guys, I guess, aren't accomplices or accessories or whatever. So, no conversation, just as soon as you disagree with them, goodbye.